Hey, Marcus Housewithy here. With the proverbial dust still settling after SpaceX launched the world's largest and most powerful rocket, we continue to delve into what we all witnessed a little over a week ago. What is the real damage at Starbase's Stage 0 and what needs to be done before the next orbital flight test? You would think that all of that would be plenty today, but of course, SpaceX, not being one to disappoint, has continued launching Falcons throughout the week. Also, iSpace's HAKUTO-R Mission made its moon landing attempt during the week. How did that go?
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
So yes, this happened, and oh boy, is there a lot of stuff to dive into. Today we are going right into the damage that came to light after everybody was allowed back at Starbase. Just look at this. Right here, next to the booster, there is a huge piece of concrete flying up. I think that everybody can breathe a huge sigh of relief that no debris like this collided with the rocket itself. That would have made for a very short flight. But take a look at the damage visible here in these images. SpaceX had quite a RUD, or in this case, a rapid unscheduled digging going on right there. Yikes, the exhaust was so strong that it even stripped one of the cross sections of the hexagonal foundation down to the bare rebar. This is what it looked like back in 2020 while under construction versus right now. All of this debris was just flying around everywhere, and as Elon said, let's hope it didn't gronk the launch mount. So as was probably expected, the pad was off limits for any crew for quite some time whilst things were being properly saved. Initially, there were some rumours floating around that SpaceX had lost all control of the orbital launch mount itself, something that did line up somewhat with this pulsating venting going on here. The first crew made their way towards the launch site in the aftermath, and you can see them there dodging all the debris on the highway to make their way towards the generators. Interestingly, to this day, the launch site is not connected to any electricity grid, so SpaceX needs to use these generators for all of the electrics. In this case, they probably needed to get in there quickly to top it up with fuel. During the evening, crews slowly made their way along the highway, clearing that from debris, and keep in mind that up until this point, the road and the beach were still fully closed. Saturday afternoon, the media was finally allowed back to pick up their remote cameras, and oh boy, did they get blasted. Take this shot from LabPadre as an example. Right here, you can see a vehicle from NASA spaceflight being directly hit by a piece of concrete. Most, if not all, of the remotes right there suffered quite a disastrous fate, but not before capturing some simply amazing imagery. SpaceX have, of course, been drip feeding a few terrific shots since the big event. The colour of the exhaust at this point in the liftoff beautifully shown in this picture here. Really love that shot, and one of the more unique, I think, was uploaded by LabPadre, and this shot captured by Trevor Mahlmann is just crazy. Just take a look at the shockwave and how dynamic its interactions are with the plume. You want to check out the full video if you haven't seen it, because yeah, this was nuts. Anyway, once the media had retrieved their cameras from the outside parking lot, the road was fully reopened again, but with a slight catch. The road right next to the orbital tank farm was off limits, so everybody needed to go straight to the dunes. Both Starship Gazer and RGV aerial photography were among those out there straight away to do the big investigation. Let's start off with the launch tower first. Overall, the tower arms actually look pretty good apart from some slight damage to the pads here. Looking at the stabilisation arms, those look quite fine too, even the cameras at the ends. The ship quick disconnect also looked to have held up quite well. None of the electrical connections looked to be fried or torn off, and this is all great news. However, further down near the drawworks hoist system at the base of the tower, things didn't look so wonderful. In fact, it looks like this sidewall was absolutely shredded to pieces with all of the debris that flew in. Some of those pieces even tried making their way back out again, clearly visible by these dents in the door and one of the shielding sections. That really puts it into perspective just how fast this debris was moving. Was there damage to the internals though? Would the hoist still work? Well, once Monday rolled around, the chopsticks were moved back down towards their resting position at the base of the launch tower, so I think it's safe to say that any damage there is minimal. At the orbital launch mount and pad, that is where the bulk of the damage has occurred. All of this debris came from somewhere, right? As soon as we saw this, it was clear. SpaceX will be very hard at work verifying whether all of the foundations to the legs are still structurally sound. Especially important here since it looks like the main pilings of 2 legs got completely exposed. And yes, over here, your eyes aren't betraying you because this small extension of the shielding that we've affectionately started to call a doghouse isn't completely horizontal anymore. All that unscheduled digging pushed that shielding upwards. Much of the cryogenic pipes underneath will need checks, and I'm sure at least some replacing. Around the broader area, new concrete will need to be redone, as even here, loads of it was blasted away. Some of it even ended up on the high pressure tanks and even further away on Highway 4. Interestingly, at a glance, the launch mount itself didn't look too bad. There is obvious damage, but that newly installed external shielding looks to have held up great. There could be a chunk of damage near the cryogenic pipelines here, certainly some new installation to be reinstalled. Some smaller pipes, such as this one supplying gaseous nitrogen to one of the fire suppression system nozzles, got completely torn off, and there were electrical wires hanging there. Overall though, considering the colossal concrete explosions going on underneath, it is surprising how well it seems to appear. Now, the story on the other side of that shielding, where all of the control circuitry and hardware is located, may be different. None of that we can see, so speculation warning here. I think given the fact that one of the 2 blast doors got completely blown off, the pressures inside were probably quite significant. Yeah, here it was, out in the grass. They won't be using that one again. But what about this concrete? That was something else entirely. Chunks of all sizes roaring away from the pad at tremendous speed. Just look at these huge boulders of concrete scattered around the mud flats far, far away. It really puts into perspective just how much force we were talking about here. The big question in my mind was the vertical tank farm. Wow, that there does not look good. After the launch, it looked like a small leak occurred in one of the liquid oxygen shells. The damage to the exterior of these ones is quite profound. Thankfully, most of these tanks aren't that important right now. This one here is the water tank, and that had a fairly unclear fate for quite some time, with previous patch-ups and leaks being repaired. That one probably needed replacing anyway. It does look like all 4 tanks here have had quite a peppering of concrete, piercing a bunch of holes. Remember though, the non-water tanks do have inner tanks inside, so it's hard to know exactly how they have held out internally. It's going to be interesting to see whether just the outer shells need replacing, or if they will end up needing to replace the entire units in some way. The cryo stations right at the orbital berm look to have taken a fair amount of damage. However, with the new Macy site up and running, cryogenic testing for the ships and soon hopefully the boosters should be occurring here anyway. The long and short of the damage report is that SpaceX will really need to incorporate some kind of pad upgrades. A flame diverter and water deluge system we've been talking about on and off for well over a year. As some of you may recall, we've seen parts shipped over here from Florida and many new parts constructed. Elon Musk finally tweeted some insights into this situation, stating that SpaceX had already begun building a massive water-cooled steel plate to go under the launch mount 3 months ago, but it wasn't ready in time for the launch. Based on previous static fire data, SpaceX had thought that the newer Fondag concrete should hold up. Yeah, oops. It looks like that question has been answered. So how would all these plates go together though? Obviously this is all currently guesswork, but I think this view from Ryan Hansen shows it very nicely. Water would flow inward underneath strong metal plates towards the centre. Based on what we see, currently it doesn't look like they are planning to add any flame diverter near the outside. I suspect they are hoping that this works well enough so that they will still have easy and full access to manoeuvre both of the work platforms. Now, one move that did kind of surprise me was the fact that a lot of these pipes here were removed from inside the orbital launch mount. To me, it looks like those are the ones connecting the Raptor boost quick disconnects to the main supply lines that run inside the orbital launch mount. Maybe SpaceX removed these because the insulation has to be redone, or simply had to remove them to gain better access to the other areas inside. The launch mount cleanup is already making it look a lot better. Within a week of the flight, all the hold-down clamps together with the Raptor quick disconnects were fully extended, looking good there, and they've even performed multiple tests with the main booster quick disconnect. I think you may be surprised how quickly SpaceX will repair and upgrade the area. Remember, they've built up everything at the orbital launch site in just over 2 years. They've actually already begun repair work on the orbital launch mount by bringing back the stairs that they had installed and then taken away a few weeks before the launch. Make no mistake, this flight gave SpaceX a lot of flight data to work with. Absolutely invaluable stuff. It was the first ever flight of the booster after all. On top of that, the Raptor 2's firing in flight for the first time. I'd also say that the full stack has proven that it's structurally strong enough just by the fact that it slowly tumbled in the quite thick atmosphere and needed to be remotely blown up by the flight termination system. Okay, so there was notable things to update you on from the nearby build site with future vehicles. Ship 27 was here making its way out of the high bay and onto Highway 4. It quickly made another turn, arriving at the Rocket Garden. It now sits at the location where Ship 24 proudly stood before its flight. Its newer sibling, Ship 28, with the recovery hardware, also underwent some movement this week. Slightly less movement with just the lift in the high bay, but I think this is actually the most interesting. The eagle-eyed among you might have already noticed that the ship wasn't lifted by the typical squid load separator. This one connected up to 6 installed points on the top of the nose cone. Well, for Ship 28, SpaceX instead used the new 2-point lifter. If we look at these pictures here from Starship Gazer from back in early March, that was being used to lift a test jig weighted down with crane counterweights. But how exactly does this lifter attach to the ship? Well, it's very similar to the tower arms actually. The 2 main arms of this lifter has pins that can be maneuvered inwards, directly slotting them inside the upper lifting points of the ship, right beneath the forward flaps. Once it is lifted upwards, the pins are locked inside. By using this method in future, it's going to mean that SpaceX can fully complete the heat shield around the nose and then still be able to move and stack the ship where it is needed. Yet another optimization to improve the turnaround time of these prototypes. Pictures afterwards did show that the lifting jig crushed some of the tiles on the ship, so it might just take a little more refinement and experience to smooth that process out. Now, with only Ship 28 inside the high bay, there was enough room to move the nose cone and the payload bay sections of Ship 29 in. Those tiles there on the nose cone are certainly a huge improvement from Ship 24. A nice reminder how much quicker SpaceX is getting at these prototype builds. It took them just under a month to fully stack Ship 28, and Ship 29 now looks to be starting its stacking operations just over 3 weeks after 28 was finished. Now, if you would like some more speculation and interesting discussion on the Starship flight, do check out Fraser Cain's interview with Scott Manley and myself a few days ago. A really fun chat there, and one that I've got linked in the description below. We had Falcon 9 booster 1061 completing its 13th successful launch and landing, with this Starlink mission making it only one of 5 boosters to accomplish such a feat. The record is currently sitting at 15, so a very well-loved booster this one. It made its name when it carried Crew 1 and Crew 2 to the International Space Station. This time though, 46 version 1.5 Starlink satellites were on their way from Space Launch Complex 4E at Vandenberg Space Force Base, heading into Group 3 of the constellation. Now, we haven't seen a Group 3 launch for ages actually. They were paused after only 4 flights back in August of 2022. They don't actually need a lot of satellites in this orbit, and that is because Shell 3 provides coverage over the polar regions. This shell still sits a similar 560 kilometers in altitude, but instead at an inclination of 97.6 degrees. The vast majority of Starlink satellites sit at the 53-degree inclination, so quite different. Stage separation there, and the booster for this mission was heading back to the deck of the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You. Entry burn there as it punches its way through the atmosphere, and another successful touchdown and a surprise burst of dragon fire right there. Looked a little bit unusual, but I don't think it was a problem, so yes, another successful launch and landing from Vandenberg. Now, what you may not know is that launch cadence by SpaceX in this area may soon get even more crazy. Did you spot this news? Yep, SpaceX is now getting a second launch pad at Vandenberg Space Force Base after approval was granted to lease Space Launch Complex 6. the very same historic site that had been used by United Launch Alliance, with ULA having launched the final Delta IV Heavy from Vandenberg in September last year. Falcons will now take this stage, presumably being built out to support both Falcon Heavy and Falcon 9. United Launch Alliance are actually going to consolidate West Coast launch operations for the new Vulcan Centaur rocket at Space Launch Complex 3, the same launch complex used in the final Atlas V launch from Vandenberg late last year. We also had even more Falcon 9 action from SpaceX just this past day with the launch of the O3B mPOWER mission. This site, Space Launch Complex 40 from Cape Canaveral. These two communication satellites, number 3 and 4, are actually more interesting than you might think. Here we have stage separation, and the second stage continued pushing the satellites into space. Their final destination, a medium Earth orbit. This orbit type has a fairly arbitrary definition really. You hear us talk about low Earth orbit all the time. That is really anything under 2,000 kilometers or so. From there, it is classed as a medium Earth orbit until you hit a geostationary altitude just under 35,800 kilometers. That's a big range, isn't it? But these satellites are going to instead sit at around 8,000 kilometers or so. Here, you actually get a great balance for good coverage. In low Earth orbit, you do get a slightly faster communication time, but it is busy down here, and you are still fighting some small atmospheric drag over time. Starlink satellites cover less area, and they will only last about 5 years or so before they need to re-enter. With O3B mPOWER being 8,000 kilometers up, there is almost no drag at all, and each unit can cover a much greater area, high enough in fact to reach 96% of the Earth. Communication time is also pretty decent. Instead of them needing to cover the orbit with hundreds of satellites, this network only needs 11 big high-powered satellites. Pretty big units, as you can see from this here shown by Boeing manufacturing them. I believe they actually only need 6 of these too to cover the full orbit. The 11 would just be for added bandwidth and redundancy. SpaceX's booster, of course, made the long coast to its re-entry burn, screaming back into the atmosphere and coming down to land this time on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. Meanwhile, after the second stage did its job, we awaited satellite deployment from that stage. Sadly, there were no visuals of the deployment with the camera view obscured, but successful deployment of both was confirmed in the stream. Now, launching right alongside that mission, we were awaiting the expendable Falcon Heavy launch for Viasat 3. Sadly, that was scrubbed at T-minus 59 seconds, so that has been pushed back. Do keep your eyes out for that one. It should be an exciting mission. Now, I have some unfortunate updates on the iSpace HAKUTO-R Mission 1 lunar lander. More on that shortly, but first, a massive thank you to AG1 for sponsoring this video. A terrific way to support your immune system and take ownership of your health. This is AG1. Living the life that I do indoors making videos, it is easy to end up lacking a bunch of important vitamins and minerals. During short winter days in Tasmania, I barely even get to see sunlight. To counteract this, I typically take a bunch of supplements, especially vitamin D, as part of my daily routine. How many other vitamins and minerals are typically missing from my diet though? Who's got time to work that out? Well, drinking AG1 has me hitting the ground running without taking a bunch of separate supplements. Since using it, I've got to say I've been pretty impressed. You just pop 1 scoop of AG1 in water and then just drink it down as part of your morning routine. It tastes good with kind of a fruity, nutty sort of taste. With it, I just feel clearer and more focused throughout the day, and that makes sense because it's packed with vitamins, minerals and nutrients to support health and energy levels. Just look at all the stuff packed into this one drink. AG1 also supports adrenal health and brain recovery, which is perfect for those weeks where I'm feeling burnt out. Certainly great for those crazy weeks like we've just experienced. So add AG1 to your morning routine. Just head to athleticgreens.com/MarcusHouse and get an added 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D3, K2 and 5 travel packs for free. Thank you, AG1. So, an unfortunate update for the HAKUTO-R lunar lander. Sadly, this week after the landing attempt on the surface of the moon, communication was lost in the final stages of the descent. After the attempt and after hours of nail biting, iSpace released a statement telling us that their 9th milestone of landing on the moon and establishing communication was no longer achievable. As stated here, the engineers monitored the estimated remaining propellant reached at the lower threshold, and shortly afterward the descent speed speed rapidly increased. After that, the communication loss happened. So yes, a hard landing on the moon's surface was the result there. Now, I just want to emphasize this. It is so common for the news sources out there to immediately publish headlines in a negative way. Bad news sells, right? But I want to congratulate iSpace on their transparency and of course for performing 8 out of the 10 milestones for this mission successfully, right from the launch preparations, orbital maneuvers and completing all of the needed control to enter a lunar orbit, all on the first attempt, and that is a huge deal. Through all of this, their Mission Control Center has acquired valuable data and know-how that is certainly going to give a better chance in future lunar landing missions. Don't forget, this was aiming to be the very first private spacecraft, also Japanese built, to land softly on the moon. No small feat. For now though, iSpace plans to use the data and the knowledge acquired to improve the design in Mission 2, hopefully still coming in 2024, and then Mission 3 in 2025. So far though, this is a gigantic leap forward for the private sector being able to explore the lunar surface. iSpace received support from various stakeholders including JAXA and the European Space Agency, Ariane Group and Draper, and they all acknowledged the significance of this mission. So that, my friends, is another week of updates for you. What did you think about the damage update around Starbase? An interesting spectacle and much more information to come, I'm sure. As always, thanks for being subscribed here, helping us get these videos out there. All that interaction helps a bunch. To all of the incredible patrons and YouTube members, you astound me every single week, and I just loved all of your feedback and chats around our deep dive video last weekend on the steps needed to launch a Starship. A link to that is right here on the left if you missed it, and if you missed our Starship launch video, that popped up just before the regular time on Friday, so you can catch up on that here. And then we've got some other deep dives there too. Thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.